Hey everyone, Eric Brooker here with Big Leaf Networks. Thank you so much for joining. We did have slated Jonathan joining us. He's our director of product. Unfortunately, he had a health-related issue, so we have Tanya Stricker joining us as well. So we're happy to have you here. Thank you for joining us. Today we're going to talk about fixing bad video and VoIP calls for good. Now, when we were putting the slide deck together, what you see behind me is exactly what I thought of. We're in a very different world now. Things look different than they did in January of just this year. Somehow the dog barking, somehow the FedEx guy ringing the doorbell, somehow your kids walking in during a live broadcast or a Zoom session, those are somehow acceptable. But what we're finding that's not acceptable is bad VoIP calls and bad video calls, because regardless of the industry that you are in, the expectation is that you have a seamless experience with your clients and that your clients expect that seamless experience regardless of where you're working. So again, today we started off a little fun. That's 3 of my 7, so you can imagine the noise that gets created. The upside is I have a solution in place for video and VoIP calls. Again, my name is Eric Brooker. We're going to have Tanya join us as well. Just a quick housekeeping note. We will take questions at the end. So if you have any questions through the course of the presentation, please go ahead and put them in the chat box and we will address them at the end of the presentation. So first and foremost, who is Big Leaf Networks and what are we all about? Big Leaf Networks is an SD-WAN manufacturer. We're based out of Portland, Oregon. I'm sitting in St. Paul, Minnesota. Our core focus is to ensure reliable and uninterrupted business communication and application performance over the internet. Again, we talked at the very beginning of this presentation, the world's changed. Your home internet is not built for what it's experiencing today. Many of us are working from home. Some of us are still in the office. We'll address that in just a minute. What we're going to talk about today is we're going to do a very high level of voice over IP services, or UCaaS. We're going to talk about what causes voice and video issues. We're going to track down the cause of those issues, and we're going to talk about how to improve voice and video for your team. Now, real quick, we're going to jump into a survey very quickly. 4.7 million Americans work from home at the beginning of this year. That number is now up to 85 million people, 4.7 to 85 million people. So the first poll question, please fill it out. Where are you working these days mostly? Are you working in the office? Are you working at home? Or is it some combination of the two? We'll pause for just a minute so people can take the poll. I think as we're finishing up the poll, the most daunting thing to me is that 57% of the US workforce has started to work from home. We are starting to see a shift in behavior. Folks that didn't previously work from home are becoming more efficient. I was actually listening to a podcast this morning that talked about how we're all working on average about 2 hours more per day because the office is in our bedroom or the office is in a guest room. 59% of you, so that's in line with what we see. 59% of people are working at home. Again, that number's in line with this statistic right here. I'm surprised that the combination is upwards of 23%. So we'll continue with the presentation. Bear with me. So we'll continue with the presentation. We actually have one more poll, but before we get into that poll, I really want to talk about sort of this new norm. Again, with the vast majority of the people on this call working from home, company meetings are now done via Zoom. Company meetings are now done via Teams. Call centers, contact center workers are distributed to their homes. Telemedicine and online schooling is becoming at least temporarily, the new norm. Notre Dame shut down yesterday. Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana is sending all of their students home for the foreseeable future. They're going to teach online. Now, again, we started off this presentation with my kids in the background. Somehow that's acceptable in most cases for a kid to walk in or for a dog to bark. What's not acceptable is for this experience to be subpar, especially Notre Dame. Typical tuition is $67,000 a year. Believe it or not, Notre Dame is not giving any discounts for online schooling. If you're a doctor or a medical professional, the expectation is that when I have a live meeting with my doctor over a Zoom or a Teams meeting, my expectation is that interaction is seamless. But moreover, we're finding that 74% of CFOs are expecting to move previously on-site employees remote post COVID-19. A lot of that just has to do with the sheer need to save money. The average business can save nearly $11,000 per year per employee to have them work from home, even part-time. So Tanya, if you would, we're going to drop another poll question up, the last poll question. Don't worry. If you are mostly work from home, will your company mandate a return to the office at some point? And really the follow-up to that is, or do you anticipate sort of a new norm being created in your workforce where people will just be allowed to work from home going forward? We'll pause for just another minute. And again, if you have any questions throughout the course of this presentation, please drop them in the chat box. Tanya and I will address them at the end of the presentation. All right, so 69% of people in the survey will not mandate, their companies will not mandate a return to the office. So we're already starting to see some of this shift. So let's move forward a little bit. What are the benefits and challenges of VoIP? The benefits generally are pretty easy, right? You get some cost savings. It's portable, so when there's a pandemic, you can ask everyone to grab their laptops and their VoIP phones and simply go home. Some of the challenges that are created is dropped calls, freezing calls, that hang up of, hey, I got disconnected, or somehow, Tanya, I couldn't hear you, so I hung up and I'm calling back. We've all heard that tinny sound on a VoIP call. We're going to talk about what's behind that and how we can fix that here in just a few minutes. Let's talk about a larger issue though, and that larger issue is the internet. I mentioned at the very beginning that the residential internet was simply never built for 85 million Americans working from home, coupled with distance learning, coupled with Netflix and Disney Plus and Hulu. We're in a different world now. Now, the statistics here are gathered from our customer base. Again, we're not an ISP, we're an SD-WAN manufacturer, but we do have visibility into the ISP services of all of our customers. Our customer base has a blackout outage about 3.5 hours per month. Now, some of you might be saying, well, my firewall can fix that. And your firewall may very well be able to fix the outage. What your firewall cannot do is manage the 23 hours of unusable performance. At home, that's the spinny globe of Netflix. At the work environment, that's the tiling of a Zoom call or a GoToMeeting. That's the, hey, Tanya, I missed that. Can you repeat yourself? And the average cost from an IDC survey, the average cost is about $8,000 per hour. Now, I was talking to one of my coworkers a couple of weeks ago now, and he said that he was running through this presentation with a client, and that client said, Eric, or I beg your pardon, Brian, it's not $8,000 an hour for us, it's $100,000 an hour. So the cost of downtime is significant. But let's talk about more specifically what the impact of poor connections are. And I'm going to let everybody read through this. I'm going to focus on the big one. The big one is lost business and customer dissatisfaction. Went to the doctor this morning for a checkup. Protocol's different, as you can imagine. I didn't just walk in. I had to call the doctor. I had to tell them I was sitting in my car and that I was waiting for my appointment. Unfortunately, when I called and I was on hold and then I got disconnected. So then I called back and their auto attendant wasn't working properly. They finally picked up, and in the middle of me saying, "Hey, this is Eric Brooker. I'm here for my 10 o'clock doctor's appointment," we got disconnected. I was dissatisfied was an understatement, let alone the 40 minutes I had to wait in my car to see the doctor. But there's a fix for some of this stuff. And with this new norm being created of so many of us working from home and so many of our customers working from home, we really need to take a serious look at the ways in which we can solve this in a long-term solution. So what are the causes of these issues? A lot of these things we know, right? Packet loss, latency, jitter, degradation, and so forth. So we know these problems exist, but what are we doing about them? Tanya, what are we doing about them?
Yeah, Eric. So we are working on just kind of looking at the underlying symptoms of those, and then we'll talk later about how we can fix some of them. So common issues that the VoIP and video calls might have, Eric's already talked about, but some symptoms can be related to specific issues. For example, if you're experiencing dropped calls, it's mostly related to outages with your network provider. If you've got things like the robot voice or sounds like someone is talking and they're underwater, that's usually a problem with the way that their quality of service is configured. So there's things that we can do to help fix that, and we're going to talk about that as we move along. If you are hearing grating noises or it sounds tinny, usually that's related to jitter or packet loss. So in the way that video and VoIP calls work is that they're sending packets of information over that are the ones and zeros of the world, and at the other side it has to recreate them. And so when things get lost or misplaced, it results in all of these issues that people are experiencing. When things freeze up or you get delayed, or I get that spinny globe of doom when I'm trying to join a Zoom call, for example, that's usually related to latency or jitter. And those are all network connectivity issues that we're going to talk a little bit more about, just so you understand how the issues are impacting your video and voice data. So the first issue I wanted to talk about is latency. And this is really a delay, right? So this is like a traffic jam on the freeway of moving these packets from one place to the other. There's some lag in there. You get slowed down. You experiencing, the car in front of you slows down, so you have to slow down, and that information gets interrupted as it's going over the line. So what happens is the person is speaking, but the sound takes a moment to relay back. So what you'll find is on a call like this, you might see my mouth move, but nothing is coming across. And so it kind of makes it a little bit difficult when you're trying to communicate with someone, because you've lost that line of communication. You can see that they're talking on the video sometimes, but you can't hear them, or their video freezes and they keep on talking, but you can't see their expressions on their face. So this is all things that are related to latency issues. And so one of the things we can do is to talk about how we can start to fix those with a good connection. So let's go to the next slide. Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt you, Tanya, but all I can think about when you're talking about latency is the 3 children that helped me start this video, where my mouth is moving, but they're not hearing me.
Oh yeah, that's a different kind of latency. Yeah. So when you're experiencing things like jitter, it's really the time delay of packets that are coming over the internet. So here's where you get the information where basically it's sending packets of data over and over again. And what happens is one of those packets gets kind of lost or jumbled around. And so the information then comes out of order. So what might happen when you're experiencing jitter is that your audio is scrambled, or it just sounds like someone's just talking, blah, 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 blah. You don't understand what they're saying. So it kind of causes those problems like, well, can you hear me now? Or can you repeat yourself, as you said earlier? And that's typically caused by congestion at your network. So that jitter is usually a problem when people are sending too much data over their network, or they don't have a big enough network connection in order to manage all the data that's going across it. One of the other things that we experience is packet loss. And this is what happens when information is just lost completely. So I'll be talking and my audio just won't come across at all. You won't be able to hear me. This is really related to an unreliable internet connection. So this is what happens when you're talking with someone, and you might actually even drop the call as you had it happen at your appointment today. You'll be waiting on hold and you experience packet loss, and all of a sudden you hear the beep on your iPhone that says, oh, you're not on the call anymore, but yes, you've been waiting on hold for 20 minutes. So the next slide. So we've talked a little bit about some of the business impacts of these bad voice and video calls, and really it all comes down to what you said before, and that is lost revenue. So what happens if your VoIP system can't complete a call from a customer, or you're experiencing issues with the calls and you're dropping them midstream, maybe while a customer is trying to place an order with you, or trying to get you to come out to do an estimate, or even talking on the phone with a telemedicine worker. You're midstream telling them your symptoms, and all of a sudden your call just gets dropped and you have to call back in and start over again. And that results in inefficiency both for the customer and for you, because you have to start that process all over again when you drop a call. Your customers get really frustrated when you have to go back into a queue. I mean, I've had this happen to me before when calling my network provider. You're talking to somebody and all of a sudden they're going to transfer you to someone else, and they transfer you to someone else and it drops you. Well, the same thing happens when you're in the middle of a VoIP call with someone and it drops you mid-sentence. You have to just go back and start all over again. If you're running a call center, for example, you might be spending $25 to $50 or charging your customers $25 to $50 an hour for being able to take their calls. And so every minute that you're offline, you're losing money because you can't charge that back out. So it's really a cause of frustration for people, not only your customers, but for your employees who are experiencing these issues. So what can we do to improve the VoIP and video quality for teams? Here's where Big Leaf comes in. And SD-WAN in particular is a really good way to get a better, leverage your bandwidth that you have in a better way. So it's a great way for you to optimize your VoIP service and get your connections in between your offices and your cloud-based applications really running well. And we're going to describe in more specifics how we can do that at Big Leaf. So why would you? Oh, yep. Sorry. Why would you choose SD-WAN? And basically you might want to say, well, I can get more bandwidth and that should cover the calls that I'm having trouble with. Maybe it's congested related issue, so I'm just going to buy more bandwidth. Well, that might solve a small issue, but it's not going to solve issues with your network going down completely. It also might be very expensive for you to increase your bandwidth. And even adding another internet connection could be a possible fix for these things, but it may not be possible based on where you're located, or it could be extremely costly to implement. So the SD-WAN router basically helps with prioritization of your traffic. You're making sure that those really high quality VoIP and video calls are backed by a network that's going to provide failover if something happens with your primary network. And it's going to prioritize your business application traffic, which is really the most important thing. It's providing that dynamic bidirectional quality of service, which we like to equate to as being, if you're on a 2-lane road, the QoS is basically your HOV lane, right? It is prioritizing all of that traffic that is very critical to your business and making sure that it gets the top priority over your network. So Eric, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about the Big Leaf solution.
Yeah, I'm actually going to take a step back for just a minute. One of the analogies that I hear a lot here at Big Leaf is the question comes up, well, why don't I just buy more bandwidth? And you just addressed that question. I'm sure there's people watching this presentation thinking, hey, Tanya, I can get more bandwidth for $50 a month. The analogy that I hear that really resonated with me, it's the HOV lane that Tanya was talking about, but it's the difference between a 2-lane dirt road and a 2-lane paved road. The question is, which would you rather drive your Lamborghini down? Obviously, we'd rather drive down the 2-lane paved road, but what you're getting with SD-WAN technology is a 2-lane paved road, and that HOV lane is really dedicated to you. We're prioritizing, in this case, business critical applications over everything else going on over the internet. So SD-WAN tends to be an affordable plug and play solution. Big Leaf in particular tends to be the plug and play solution. There are a lot of SD-WAN manufacturers out there. Some are considerably more cumbersome. We have patents on technologies that not only deploy, but are autonomous in nature, meaning we identify applications by application type. Different presentation, but some of you may have heard me talk in the past. There are 12 different business owners in IT these days. It's folks like you and me, and it's IT. It's really anyone with a credit card and a laptop that can drum up an application. So being able to identify applications by application type is really, really critical. And again, we do that in an automated fashion. So who is Big Leaf? We're a site to cloud SD-WAN manufacturer. I talked about the autonomous nature of how we do things, and we're firewall friendly. I want to sit on that for just a minute. We're firewall friendly. It's likely you've already invested in a firewall in the last 18 to 24 months. Statistics would tell us that. But beyond that, you've not only invested in the firewall, you have invested in the install and the implementation and creating manual policies for that firewall. And if you're PCI compliant or if you're HIPAA compliant, touching that firewall gets to be a tricky venture. So our approach is keep your firewall in place. We sit outside of the firewall, making the install and the implementation that much easier. We keep you in accordance with your HIPAA security compliance and with your PCI compliance, because again, we sit outside of the firewall. You don't have to readdress policies for your firewall. We also have multiple gateway clusters. So all of our customers are attached to a primary and a secondary gateway cluster. For me in St. Paul, Minnesota, my primary is in Chicago and my secondary is in New York. Again, I mentioned that we're firewall friendly, but one of the questions that tends to come up with some regularity is, what about my VPN? We still have some antiquated systems that we weren't able to put in the cloud prior to COVID, and we're still leveraging VPN. Big Leaf supports VPN functionality. Big Leaf can, on an as-needed basis, also prioritize VPN traffic manually. I do want to note, because this is a question that comes up, we don't see inside of the VPN tunnel, so we can't prioritize the VPN traffic by application type, but we can prioritize the VPN traffic by VPN traffic. Again, more during the Q&A. Now, a lot of you are saying, Eric, that's all well and good. Tanya, I get it, I see value, but we're working from home. In March, Big Leaf rolled out a home office appliance. It is leveraging all of the same services that Big Leaf Standard Office creates. We're still site to cloud. We still offer the automatic prioritization. We're still single circuit friendly, which means if you're anything like most of us, you've just got a single internet circuit at your home. But because we sit outside of the firewall, because there's no manual policies to be created, because we prioritize application by application type, Susie in accounting can do the install for Big Leaf Home Office. John in sales can do the install for Big Leaf Home Office. Again, for those of you that were with us at the very beginning, you met 3 of my 7 children. This is literally what my home looks like each and every day. I am on Zoom calls. I think yesterday I was on 9 of them, but I go from Zoom calls to Zoom call to Zoom call. School's starting, distance learning is starting. Today, because it hasn't started, Disney Plus is happening in the basement, so I can keep a quiet main floor to do this presentation. The challenge is this is also what the home office looks like. There's latency, there's jitter, there's packet loss, there's down internet circuits. So our suggestion is, whether you be a medical professional, whether you be a professor at a university, or whether you just be a salesperson or a contact center worker, Big Leaf home office creates a solution that prioritizes, like our standard solution, business critical, mission critical applications over everything else going on in the internet. So while we're doing this GoToWebinar, I know that my kids are downstairs playing the Xbox. I know that they're watching Disney Plus, but I don't have to worry about this interaction because I know that my data is prioritized accordingly, and nothing on my internet connection is more important than this interaction right here. So who succeeds with Big Leaf? I gave a couple ideas, but basically anybody that relies on cloud-based applications, folks that already have a security parameter or security policies in place, folks that have limited IT resources. For that matter, in fact, I joked about this in a presentation yesterday. Tanya knows this. My 4-year-old did the Big Leaf install at my home office when we moved into this house May 1st. Everything's color coded. It's 5 steps. It's incredibly easy. I say that because, again, Susie in accounting, if she's having a problem with her home internet, is going to need a service like this. John in sales is going to need a service like this. DP Fox is an existing customer of ours. You can read more about this case study on our website. But they're a fast-growing chain of car and motorcycle dealerships. They were having issues managing their cloud-based applications. Insert Big Leaf Networks, and we eliminated any of the issues they were having related to brownouts and blackouts. Those brownouts can be more impactful than the blackouts because when the internet's down, we know it's down. But when the internet is suspect at best, it's hard to manage through that interaction. So again, where do we fit? As Tanya mentioned, we provide automated bidirectional QoS, packet loss mitigation. You can actually go into the back office of your Big Leaf device and see exactly how many packets have been reprioritized. During the summer at my house, it's been fascinating to me while I'm on a Zoom call and the kids are watching Netflix in the basement to see exactly how many packets are reprioritized. A couple other notable facts. Again, we're firewall friendly and we sit at the core of the internet. Now, what does that mean to you? Why do I care that Big Leaf sits at the core of the internet? Sitting at the core of the internet allows us to have direct peering agreements with thousands of cloud applications. Again, from Ring Central and Nextiva to Zoom and WebEx and everything else under the sun. So Tanya, that's the Big Leaf story. I want to open it up to some questions. What, if any, questions have we gotten over the course of the presentation thus far?
We have some good questions. So the first question I want to address is, will this video be available after? And we will send this out to you later this week, a copy of the recording so that you can take a look at it and share it with anyone that you would like to. Let me just go through some of these questions. We have a lot of questions, and if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A and we will get to them. Let's see.
While you're looking for one, I've got one that I think is going to come up.
Yep.
We rolled out home office because of COVID. We rolled out home office because we saw the need when 4.7 million home office workers turned into 85 million. The question some of you ask in these types of presentations is, hey, Eric, hey, Tanya, it's August. You know, with some luck and some prayer, this is all over November 1st. What happens then? I've got my whole staff moving home. Well, for those of you that were here earlier, I think it was 69% of the people on this call, their companies do not have plans to take them back to the office, even post-COVID. So that's an important number to note because we're going to find in the long run that there's going to be between 20 and 30 million people working from home in perpetuity. COVID or no COVID, that's just what the new norm looks like. But for those of you that need a Big Leaf device, for your contact center workers, for your doctors, for your medical professionals, for your salespeople, you need it now, knowing that COVID hopefully ends in the very near future. We do offer a month-to-month service. That month-to-month service is just $99 a month, which is probably the next thing that you're waiting for. But we offer that month-to-month service as an answer to sort of caring for our clients through this pandemic of we need a solution now, but we don't want to invest in a long-term solution because some companies do want to have their folks go back to the office when this is over.
Yeah. So we got a good question here, a little bit related to cost, but just saying that for home offices, they often have a higher bandwidth speed, so the cost could scare them away. I think you've addressed the fact that our cost is very reasonable and easy to set up, and most companies now are actually giving their employees home office credit for some network connectivity things, or I think Google just announced they were giving everyone a $7,500 a year bonus just to get their offices set up with home if they want to have a big leaf device, or if they want to do a sit-stand desk or something like that. But generally what we're hearing from our customers is that the cost of paying for their employees to have a device on site is much less than it costs them to manage the office space that that employee would be taking, even if it's on a part-time basis.
Yeah, so there's a couple things that need to be noted. The average company, 51 to 100 employees, invests $13,000 a month in software-based applications. So the $99 a month per employee is really an investment to protect the software as a service that your companies are already investing with. Now that number skyrockets as we go above 250 employees. So there's that element to consider, right? We're protecting the investment in software as a service based applications. There are also a lot of other areas where companies are saving right now, but there's nothing worse than a lost customer. And I can tell you the countless stories I have heard of, my customer service department had some technical issues, but the visibility that we provide, the other thing that I think is really notable to answer here is IT is getting a lot of phone calls that sound a lot like, hey, my Zoom call didn't work, or the Ring Central call I was on dropped. Well, when your folks are all remote, you don't have visibility into their network. So you don't know if it's a Ring Central or a Zoom issue, or if it's a connectivity issue. With the reporting that Big Leaf provides, we can let you know instantaneously what the issue was. If it was a network issue, you're going to see an alarm on that account at that level to see that there was a problem with the network.
Yeah, so we had a question about how this works with just a single internet connection for people that are at home that only have Verizon, for example.
Yeah, so I would say 90+% of our home office customers just have a single internet connection. Again, the priority there is prioritizing business critical applications over everything else going on in the internet, right? So with a single Verizon connection, you're still now contending for bandwidth over Netflix, Disney Plus, distance learning, and everything else going on over the internet. So we are providing quality of service, but we're also reprioritizing packets. I won't do it today. If you want to reach out to me offline, I can show you my home office device. It is fascinating to see how many packets are reprioritized, meaning Netflix and GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar are happening at the same time, but we're putting those GoToMeeting packets in front of the Netflix packets because GoToMeeting is the business critical application.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think I could probably even do this webinar if I didn't have a Big Leaf device, because I'm out in the country, and before I got it, my network was unstable, came up on my Zoom meeting just about every time I was on it. So the fact that I can have this and be seamlessly talking to you with just one internet connection is really pretty much a miracle. All right, so the next question is, how do you connect it if you have an integrated Wi-Fi router modem?
Ooh, someone asked a tough question.
Tough question.
So we won't get into the technical aspects. We actually are shipping out a wireless router as well. So effectively what you're going to do is you're going to turn off the wireless function to, let's say, your Comcast modem router combo. So you're still going to use it as a modem. We're going to give you a new router. If your modem and router are combined, we will ship out a router as well. And then again, the configuration takes a matter of about 5 minutes, but there's just an extra piece of equipment. We do that to make sure that we're providing quality of service to every device in the home and not just the device plugged into the modem router combo. So effectively what I did, because I'm a Comcast customer, I have a single modem router combo. I turned off the router. I dropped in my own router, which for me is a router and a firewall because I've got a bunch of kids that I'm trying to protect. And then I was off to the races. Again, it's still a 5, maybe 10-minute install.
Oh, we got a question about contact information. We could probably just move that to the next slide so people could get in touch with us.
You're not Jonathan.
I'm not Jonathan, but I am Tanya S. at bigleaf.net. Our largest deployment done to date, we've done some pretty big customer installs. So can we talk to some of those?
Oh, I would say we've done some enterprise class installs. Probably one of the biggest conversations that we're having right now that is, I'll say it proof of concept and going very, very well, is for a university, actually one of the largest universities in the United States. They are, like Notre Dame, not charging any less to do distance learning. What they're finding is their 2,500 professors are experiencing a lot of problems with internet through summer programs, and so they're looking to outfit all of their professors with a Big Leaf home office device for at least the first semester. Again, the hope for this university is that they're able to get everybody back at the start of the second semester. That's probably one of the biggest conversations that we're having right now. But in terms of some of the biggest conversations, we run the gamut from single site to thousands of sites. It really is just a matter of understanding what the needs and the applications are, and the solution that we're trying to fix. You know, for a hospital or a medical facility, we don't necessarily need to outfit every employee with Big Leaf Home Office. There's a good chance, I joke about Susie in accounting, it's a good chance Susie in accounting doesn't actually need a Big Leaf device. She's probably not doing a lot of video calls. She may or may not be doing much relative to VoIP. That might be internal, and her internet might be somewhat stable. I think that's the hardest part for us as a business right now, is individuals are having this issue at home and not exactly certain how to articulate the challenges that they're having with their IT leadership. We don't work with individuals. We do work with C-level, IT level, VP level folks. And so some of them are hearing of the problems and some of them are not. When we ask them to go send out a quick survey to their staff, the staff believes that it's the applications. Again, Ring Central's not working, Zoom's not working. I'm having all sorts of problems with Salesforce. Well, it's not Ring Central, it's not Zoom, it's not Salesforce. It's the underlying internet connection that's having issues.
Yep. There's a question, I think it's related to price per user, price per site. So we can talk to that. It is per device. So if we have a graduated scale based upon how much bandwidth you need, and it's based upon device. So if it's a home office, it's for the device at that person's home. If it's for a site, it's for your office site. So the pricing varies. There also is a question about a minimum number of sites, or can we just set up a single business with this?
Yeah, we have set up some doctors' offices where the doctor's now working from home. I've got a buddy of mine who's a dentist in Portland who called me and said, hey, I need this. I'm doing Teams meetings all day with my patients. Yeah, one to many, whatever is the best solution for your customer or for yourself, we're here to help. We've absolutely deployed single sites many a times.
Yeah, then we have a couple questions just really asking about, what makes Big Leaf different than the other options that are out there? If you had to describe like the 3 things that are terrific about Big Leaf.
Well, Tanya and Eric, so there's 2. I would say there are not a lot of home office. So let's take SD-WAN as a whole. There aren't a lot of home office solutions out there on the market today. The ones that are out there, there's a lot of manual policy creation and it can be fairly cumbersome. We actually pre-configure everything before we ship it to the end user. So it's as plug and play as it's going to get. But our approach to the market has been very, very different. Most of our competitors want to get into the firewall space. I personally, I believe there's more money in it, which is I think why they've decided to go down that path. Our approach has been, you likely invested in a firewall, and we talked about this in the last 18 to 24 months. Let's respect the policies that you already have in place. Let's make it as easy as possible to give you quality of service, bi-directional quality of service, some of the automated natures of how we do business. And taking the firewall out of the mix is probably one of the easiest. And then the last one is the automated nature. Again, we talked about this earlier in the presentation, but because everything we do is automated, this is a key. In fact, I'm gonna hammer this one home. This is a key differentiator. I am predominantly a Zoom meeting person. If I do 8 to 10 meetings via Zoom a day, that's the norm. But if I have another SD-WAN manufacturer in place, they're going to prioritize all Zoom traffic. But what happens when my customer sends me a WebEx meeting or a Skype meeting or a GoToMeeting? With any other SD-WAN manufacturer, if I don't let IT know that I'm dropping a new application on the network, they can't prioritize it. They can't create a manual policy to prioritize it. Whereas with Big Leaf, we just recognize it by application type. So whether it be FaceTime, Skype, GoToMeeting, Zoom, or WebEx, that's all the same application type, and we're going to prioritize that accordingly. That's a key differentiator for us.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. So I think that, let's see, just make sure. Do we do demos was a question.
I'm going to answer twofold. Yes, we do a demo, so we can give anyone visibility into the back office. I typically pull up my connection. I have 2 internet connections. I joke I have the world's worst primary internet circuit, but I didn't know that until I had a Big Leaf device and I was able to see the alarms. Some of it I believe is a cabling issue at the street, but I haven't gotten my provider to fix it yet. So we can give you a back-end view of the portal itself. We do also offer on a limited basis proof of concept. We do also offer, for what it's worth, a 30-day money-back guarantee as well. So there's probably 3 answers to that one question.
Yep, perfect. Okay, there's a couple of technical questions, and I just want to let you guys know that Jonathan will be getting back with you, or someone on our technical side will get back with you with answers to your technical questions. I personally don't want to put my foot in my mouth and say something that's not accurate. And since I'm filling in for our technical expert today, I'm going to defer those questions to someone else, but rest assured we will get back with you on answers to your questions that you asked, hopefully by the end of the day. And if we don't, you have a contact information here, so please feel free to reach out to us at any time. I just have one final poll question for everyone, and that is, if you would like us to reach out to you so you could get more information, whether that's a brochure or a demo, or you just would like us to talk with you about what your particular application is and how we can solve your VoIP and video issues that you're experiencing in your offices and in your homes, just go ahead and let us know, and we will make sure that we get back with you as soon as possible. That being said, I would like to thank everyone for taking time out of their busy day to spend some time with us talking about our solution, and we hope to hear from you in the future, and feel free to reach out to us anytime you have questions. We really appreciate you spending the morning with us, or early afternoon.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Okay, I'm going to